Greetings, friends. My name is Pavel Stelmach, and I'm glad to present for you the new episode of our daily wrap-up series. The war of the 21st century is a war of artillery. However, shells are needed for artillery, and the side that will have enough of them will be able to win this war. That is why Ukraine, the EU and NATO are joining forces to increase weapon and ammunition production for the armed forces of Ukraine and to replenish their allies' stocks. This tripartite coordination mechanism, which was launched last week in Brussels, aims to synchronize the work of arms manufacturers, buyers and governments. Our partners should speed up and ensure the sustainability of arms deliveries. There is no choice but to move quickly because Ukrainian lives and the European security in the world are at stake. We appreciate the EU and NATO's security assistance decisions and urge them to implement them quickly, especially with tanks.
In the tank coalition, the main animal in the zoo is a Leopard from Germany, but we also have Challengers, Abrams, light tanks from France. But the main battle tank is a Leopard. I'm sure we will have 2 or 3 types of fighter jets. There will be one main bird, and it will depend on which one is best for Ukraine, for our airfields, for our engineers, for maintenance. Alexei Reznikov, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with Bild.
As Ukraine negotiates to receive fighter jets, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba proposed beginning the training of Ukrainian pilots within the existing EU and NATO mechanisms. And now the United States is conducting training for the armed forces of Ukraine before a new phase of the war with the Russian Federation, Reuters reports. Not pilots, but other specialists. But we are still grateful. The multi-day exercise has been conducted at the US Army base at Wiesbaden in Germany. Officials declined to talk about potential combat scenarios being studied by the Ukrainian military. However, they reported that the training includes mental exercises to assess possible military action. At the same time, almost all countries of the European Union have agreed on a plan developed in Brussels to quickly provide Ukraine with scarce artillery ammunition, which can be transferred within a few weeks. This is reported by the Financial Times with reference to the interlocutors in the EU. According to one of them, all EU countries except Denmark, as well as Norway, have joined the project which provides for joint purchases of ammunition. I think it will happen quickly, very quickly. I think it's a matter of days, weeks, not months, the Financial Times source added. Yes, it is much easier for Russia to send shells for its troops, but thanks to our allies who gave us long-range weapon systems that allow us to blow up warehouses in the rear, as a result, the Russians receive such shells and complain about the lack of ammunition. At the same time, Ukraine is waiting for help from the EU. They allocated €1 billion from the European Peace Fund, which is used to reimburse the costs of purchasing weapons. After that, the European Union Defence Establishment will conduct an accelerated procedure for direct negotiations with a number of key industrial suppliers in Europe, the European official said. According to a previously agreed plan, up to 90% of the cost of ammunition will be reimbursed to EU states in the short term. I remind you that the EU uses the principles that were used in the procurement of vaccines against COVID-19.
We could use a similar mechanism as we did with the vaccines, with European countries pooling funds and then centrally placing procurement orders with manufacturers. This increased revenue could give the industry the financial firepower needed to accelerate and scale up production. Kaja Kallas, Prime Minister of Estonia.
Now Ukraine uses up to 200,000 shells per month. Meanwhile, Russia fires about 20,000 to 60,000 shells a day. Although Ukraine uses ammunition more efficiently, it still uses it faster than Europe can produce. Now the US and the EU are trying to increase production, both for supplies and to Ukraine, to replenish their own stocks. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and US President Joe Biden will talk about cooperation in the production of shells right today. Scholz is traveling to Washington without the usual press delegation, and there is no press conference planned after the meeting. A German government official said that the two leaders want to keep their discussion private this time. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry continues to work to expand the international coalition to hold the Russian military and political leadership accountable for crimes in Ukraine. Russia personifies the largest child abduction operation in modern history. Such actions of the Russian Federation are genocide against the Ukrainian people. According to the head of Ukrainian diplomacy, Dmytro Kuleba, these children need immediate protection and return home. All Russian criminals involved in this operation must be held accountable for their participation in the genocide. Kuleba also called on member states of the UN Human Rights Council to extend the mandate of the UN International Independent Commission of Inquiry into violations in Ukraine. According to the minister, this commission documents evidence of large-scale and systematic violations of human rights by Russia, as well as war crimes and crimes against humanity. All these materials will be used in international trials, and we are currently working on gathering evidence too. We transferred them to the International Court. At the same time, it didn't receive any evidence from Russia for the investigation of war crimes in Ukraine, said the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan.
I've got evidence from the Ukrainians. I have not got evidence from the Russians. If you've got something, give it. I stand ready to receive it and engage with them, but it takes two to tango. Karim Khan, International Criminal Court prosecutor.
Now the geography of the international coalition to create a special tribunal for the Russian Federation is constantly expanding. In addition to European states, even the countries of the Global South have joined it. In particular, Guatemala became the first Latin American country to decide to join the coalition. Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs is confident that the coalition for establishment of the special tribunal for the crime of Russian aggression against Ukraine will grow. On January the 26th, representatives from 21 countries gathered in Prague for the founding meeting of the coalition for the creation of a special tribunal, which was organized by Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs to work out parameters for bringing the Russian Federation's political and military leadership to justice for the crime of aggression against our country. On February the 22nd, Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs gathered 45 countries for a high-level UN event dedicated to human rights violations during the Russian aggression, with the establishment of the special tribunal being one of the key topics. And today, Dmytro Kuleba spoke with United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
I spoke to Secretary Blinken, who informed me on his discussion at G20. I elaborated on our further steps to create a special tribunal for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. Our next big undertaking is to ensure accountability for Russia's leadership. Coordinated efforts are key.
Ukraine is making every effort to establish a special tribunal to try Russia's political and military leaders, as well as its allies, for the crime of aggression against Ukraine. All the atrocities we are witnessing today are the result of the crime of aggression. We must address the root cause rather than just the symptoms. And we also have to fight against negative trends in the world, and not punishing the Russian Federation for attacking Ukraine can be a signal for other aggressors. This was stated by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. After the meeting of foreign ministers of the G20 countries in New Delhi, Blinken said that Russia should bear responsibility for the war waged against Ukraine. The USA, India, Japan, and Australia also consider nuclear threats from Russia unacceptable. As part of the G20 summit, the US and its allies also called on other G20 countries to continue pressuring Russia to end the war. But the G20 was unable to agree on a joint statement due to opposition from Russia and China. That is, almost all the most developed countries in the world understand that you cannot invade foreign territories, and only 2 are against it. And there are only 7 such countries in the world. That is how many representatives did not support the resolution of the UN General Assembly, which called on Russia to leave the territory of Ukraine. The resolution was supported by 141 countries, with 32 abstaining.
It is a diplomatic victory for Ukraine and our allies. I will note that the support of our allies is very important here. The United States, European countries, allies on various continents. This is a shared victory. It is important to note that we do not wait for someone to solve our problems. We are actively promoting our positions, including at the UN platform.
The resolution was based on President Zelensky's peace formula. The resolution demands that the aggressor immediately and unconditionally withdraw all Russian troops from Ukrainian territory, release all prisoners of war and unlawfully detained persons, guarantee responsibility for international law violations on Ukrainian territory, and restore justice. Most countries around the world supported Ukraine's vision for just and lasting peace, including nearly all of Latin America and Asia, as well as a large number of African states. Any peace initiative from different capitals must now comply with the UN General Assembly resolution. Nobody should be misled by Russia's empty calls for negotiations. Russia continues to commit genocide against the Ukrainian people and still wants to destroy Ukraine as a country. The principle of territorial integrity cannot be compromised. Ukraine and the world must send a clear message to potential aggressors. Aggression will only hurt the aggressor. That's why Russia should pay for damage to Ukraine from its war.
Those genocidal actions carried out by the Russian Federation are what we oppose. They lead to the transfer of Ukrainian citizens to the Russian Federation, to the illegal adoption of children, to sexual violence. We are all witnesses of the moral abyss into which the aggressor fell. This is the embodiment of Russian disrespect for the key principles of the UN Charter: territorial integrity, indivisibility, international law, international humanitarian law, independence and sovereignty. Gabrielius Landsbergis, Minister of Foreign Affairs on Lithuania.
Therefore, we believe that Russia has no place in the UN and among civilized countries, like a killer among ordinary people, because no one knows when the killer wants to return to his usual business. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for future videos. Subscribe to UATV English and goodbye.